third webinar from Aberdeen. I'm going to hand over to Graeme Gordon, the CEO of IFB, to introduce all speakers and convene this morning's webinar. Thank you.
Morning everybody, good to see you all. Live from Aberdeen, beautiful and sunny, and hope the weather's good with you wherever you may be watching us. So our seminar today, we've got a great panel of speakers who are going to speak about networking, the importance of local and regional networking, both on a business basis and a social business basis and a personal basis, and what we can be doing to help each other rebound and revive after and post-lockdown, which is going to be the phases we seem to be moving into just now. A little bit about my business and our business. IFB is a cloud telephony, security and digital services company. We're headquartered in Aberdeen. We've been around for 25 years, which makes us middle-aged when it comes to IT services. And what we've been particularly busy with most recently is helping our customers take advantage of digital technologies as they move through, particularly security. As this new norm hits, most people are not working in a single place anymore. We have distributed workforces. So a big part of our time is supporting businesses like yours be secure and safe and as productive as you can be. The focus of today, as I say, we've got a wide-ranging panel, but all experts in their areas, and they're going to run through and tell us a little bit about their organisations, but also about what their organisations are doing and hope to do, and any support that they're looking for as they go through post-lockdown. We've got 6 fantastic speakers. We've got Councillor Jenny Laing from Aberdeen City Council. Grahame Paterson will be joining us. Ian Mitchell-Moore from the British Business Banking, sorry. Stuart Brown from Barclays. Judith Thorpe, and she's going to be chatting about women's mentoring programme that she runs. Paul Clarkson from PB Devco, which run a few establishments in Aberdeen in terms of pubs, not so much clubs, but restaurants as well and takeaways. And Alistair Forbes from the Scottish Tech Army, and he will be updating us on the phenomenal uptake and success of that so far. So first of all, I'd like to say good morning to Councillor Laing, and over to you.
Thanks very much, Graeme, for the introduction and for the opportunity to take part today. I think it's safe to say that COVID-19 has changed the economic landscape beyond any recognition, and I don't think we've fully assessed what that impact will be yet, but it's clear that it's going to have long-lasting effects, not just here in Aberdeen, but right across the country and indeed the world. So I suppose it's about how do we shape things up, and I think we realise at Aberdeen City Council that the city is a key driver for the national economy and also the city region economy, and that's why we need to make sure that we're putting things in place that will help us to deal with the current crisis, but also the long-term future of the region. I think it's imperative as we move forward that it's a collaborative approach that's taken. We want to try and maximise the results for business and the citizens that we represent as a local authority. And now we have to make sure that responding to this COVID-19 situation we find ourselves in is our #1 priority. Now, I don't for a second think that's going to be an easy task for any of us, but I do believe that we've got a very strong base from which to work from. I think as a local authority, we have a strong record, a solid track record, if you like, in working with the private sector. You just need to look at things like our regional economic strategy, which has been drawn up with public and private sector partners working together. We've got a city-region deal, which is, again, very much a collaborative approach between public and private sectors. And we've brought forward a number of transformational projects, I think, as part of that city deal, which is helping us to diversify the economy and also build on the sectors that we have strength in already, life sciences, food and drink, agriculture, and the oil and gas technology centre leading the way around that energy transition piece. I think as a local authority as well, we've utilised our capital programme over the last 8 years to maximum effect for the city and for businesses. You know, you just need to look at the investment in the transport links, for instance, the AWPR, what we're doing around our city centre master plan, the TECA development, art gallery, housing, schools. All of these things feed into supporting and strengthening the local economy. But it's clear that, you know, although we've done a good job over that last 8 years, as I say, we've still got a job of work to do. And our economic policy panel reported last year that we needed to look at that net zero aspect and bringing forward plans in relation to that climate change emergency that we were suffering before we're dealing with the current health crisis. So it is about us bringing forward a vision and a plan that will help to move Aberdeen forward in the future. And that's why I was pleased that the Council approved the net zero vision and the infrastructure plan just earlier this month, because that will provide a framework, I think, for that green economic recovery that will be so important. And it will allow us to go into government with firm plans to make sure we can secure investment for the future of Aberdeen and the North East economy. But it's not just about that energy piece. Our vision is about across various sectors, but I think we can all play our part in that green energy recovery. And so, you know, I would hope that no matter what sector your business is in, you'll look at those aspects around how you can play your part in that as well. Now, that's the hopes, I suppose, for the medium and the long term that I have. But we also need to focus on the short term, because it's quite clear, we'll hear from speakers later today, the impact that COVID-19 is having, and you know, how that's going to influence the decisions that we make. I think we've made an immediate response as a council. We've obviously tried to react very quickly around that business grant situation and the you know, business rates reliefs that have been brought in by government. £20 million distributed already in that business grants. We were aware of the anomalies that existed at the beginning for some businesses unable to tap into that, so we've lobbied at a national level to try and get changes, and I think we've seen that with people that have multiple premises and things now being able to access that, and indeed those who are maybe paying rates, their rates along with their rent didn't qualify, and we've seen movement on that. And we've also been looking about how we, once the lockdown's lifted, how we unlock the city again, make sure that it's people can move freely. And you may have seen some of the media coverage on the sustrans funding that we've secured, which will allow us to put that social distancing measures in place in the city centre and other areas throughout the city where you know, there's business and retail particularly connected, and we want to make sure that we can do that as safely as possible. We set up a business resilience group at the very start with the usual business groups sitting around the table, and they're helping us to draw up a socio-economic rescue plan. Now, that is very much a partnership between business, voluntary sector and our public sector partners, but it's how we will respond to the current crisis, both at a socio and economic level. And it's about us making sure that that fits in with our long-term plans, the plans that I've talked about already, and also our local outcome improvement plan, which is very important to us securing that long-term economic development and prosperity for the city as a whole. Now, officers are also working on a business charter that was asked for at our council meeting back in March. And it's about what we can do for business. It will be customer focused, but it's also about how business can help us to move forward with the plans that we've got. And we'll build on some of the things we've got in place already, which is around maximising the opportunities around public sector spend within the procurement aspects, big business there. It's also about us making sure that when we put out contracts, we have community benefit clauses in there, supply chain, small businesses and medium-sized enterprises benefiting from those clauses within it. We want to make sure as authority we're paying our bills on time, which can help to the cash flow of local business. And it's also about us making sure that we work in a collaborative way moving forward. So I think that lays out the things that we're doing currently. I do think that there's a short, medium and long-term plans need to be put in place, but if we work collaboratively together, I think we can make Aberdeen as successful in the future as we have been in the past. And we certainly want to play our part in that, and we look forward to working with others around that to secure the long-term prosperity of Aberdeen and the North East region. So I'll end there, I think, because I'm getting the call that that's me out of time, but hopefully that's given a flavour of what the Council's currently doing and will do in the future to help businesses locally. Thanks very much.
That's a great update, Councillor Laing, and thank you very much for your input there. And there's the offer out to the community. The Council want to get involved. They want to see the region and the area prosper. They're committed and involved, and they want more involvement, and they want to keep it as local as they can. And you know, it can be underestimated how much the public sector plays in the rebound and revival of the economy moving forward. So it's great to hear. Thank you very much, Councillor Laing. Now we're going to hear from Grahame Paterson about networking, both in and outside the ABZ postcode. Grahame, good morning.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. Networking is something that I guess we all know about the importance of, correct? But right now, I guess people are reaching out to those networks, the people that they know, the countries are reaching out and looking for help and support. So I guess now more than ever, we need to harness the power of our networks. And with a background in social enterprise development and collaborative working in Aberdeen and beyond, I understand and want to share the sense of value of networking. But, you know, and hearing from Jenny was fantastic because, you know, in my view, I think it's as important for the city as it is for those who work and do business and live here. And connectedness is going to be absolutely critical. The truth is, having a strong network makes us more resilient. And we all know about, you know, the importance of networking, right? But here's the thing, and it's a conundrum for me. You know, everybody agrees that networking is kind of critically important, but schools and colleges don't teach it. Companies and cities don't always have strategies for it. Indeed, organisations kind of expect staff to do it and be good at it, but you know, we don't always assess or train or compensate or reward them for their networking. And one of the challenges is that most people are turned off by the topic of networking, and I hope to dispel some of that. They think it's a bit sleazy and inauthentic. You know, it's all about high energy people distributing lots of business cards. People mistake very sociable people as being great networkers. I guess you all have perspectives on this, but introverts and quiet, more reserved people are not poor networkers, often, you know, absolutely the opposite. And old school networking is gone. It was all about transactions and getting the deal done. Nowadays, relationship builders are trying to help other people and don't keep score. And I've seen a rise in this through business communities that I've worked with and the council and the third sector. And it's very encouraging. We need to do more, in my view. You know, we need to think about relationships all the time, not just when we need something. And, you know, good networkers realise that the way to people that we don't know is through people that we do know. And they appreciate that to succeed, they're going to have to build a continuous culture of network building. You know, the reality is that networking is about building long-term, hearts and minds, sustainable relationships. And, you know, if we think of that as a city, in city terms, as a place, rather than a piece of geography with, you know, sort of lines in a map, that opens up the concept to a much wider interpretation. So what are we doing? I've been speaking to social enterprises and charities who are mentoring and supporting at the moment, and I've been saying to them, dig into your network. You know, you've built a network over the years. Reach out, check in, start a conversation. You know, let people know how you've adapted and pivoted your business. You need to be communicating this. And also, I've been saying, think like farmers. You know, networking is so much more about farming than it is about hunting. And I think right now, is the time where we all have to prioritise nurturing the relationships and the networks we have, both as individuals, businesses, and as the community in Aberdeen, the place, but also to be diverse in your network. And my observations are that, you know, we tend to hang around about the same people, and we narrow and limit our learning and development. We need to be more curious. Our forums tend to follow the same formula. They're populated with the same people. You know, really getting different kinds of views is going to be really very important. And Jenny again talked about that inclusive coalition approach, and let's see how that comes to life. Final thing, I guess, on that is build your social capital. It's going to become a real game changer if it's not already, and differentiating factor in the 21st century. Recognise one thing that I've recognised, that change is happening now faster than it's ever before, and it's never going to be as slow again. So, you know, the most important question we can ask right now, in my view, of our networks and of the city is, how can we help you? Jenny, how can I help you? When we get a chance to give you, you know, a chance to respond to that, we need to be listening carefully to the response. In terms of very briefly extending this sort of approach to engaging Aberdeen's diaspora, and we've talked about city and region, let me give you some context about, you know, the potential for the future, and I think the importance of reaching out to our diaspora. There are over 270 million people now live outside the country that they were born in, and that's an increase of over 50% since 2000. You know, and if migration keeps going at the pace that it has done for the last 20 years, we're going to see over 400 million international migrants by 2050. We need our friends like we've never needed them before. This is only going to add fuel to diaspora engagement around the world, and we're seeing the emergence of new types of diasporas from cities and regions, from companies and institutions, and actually even from sports teams. Diaspora capital, I guess, can be defined as the overseas resources potentially available to either a country, a region, but also a city and an organisation. It's made up of, you know, people, networks, finance, ideas, attitudes, and concerns for places of origin, ancestry, or affinity. And Aberdeen has, you know, a lot of all of those now to look at tapping into. It'd be interesting to see where we are and what we're going to do going forward. So, you know, diaspora capital is now, I guess, taking its place in the policy and practice dialogues, shaping the 21st century. I want to see Aberdeen, I want to contribute to how Aberdeen addresses that. What was once niche is now mainstream. You know, in very simple terms, those that were seen as lost actors have now become really real assets to us, available to us. That kind of brain drain has become brain gain, and that can develop into brain exchange. You know, some people say now that geography is history, and the concept of a place or a nation is much wider than those lines on a map. And it's, you know, diasporas are, and there's a lot of research. This is a growing sector. It is particularly accelerating because of the situations in which we find ourselves. And diasporas are really important conduits to three things: you know, capital, knowledge, and people. And although, you know, there's no one-size-fits-all strategy, you know, there are some really key elements about how you go about this, and I'm sure you will all have your own perspectives, and I'd like us to debate this. You know, we have to ask three fundamental questions about our diaspora. You know, who are they, where are they, and what are they doing? And in the spirit in which Jenny has outlined about the Aberdeen's vision, the values, and the values really are important if we're going to develop relationships with our diaspora. And let me tell you, there is a real value in that flow and exchange. There is I guess, an appeal from me as I'm finishing up now. Not only is this about connecting with diasporas that can help us, but how we can help those diasporas that have an affinity or a connection with the city. And I think that will give us an international perspective that will be important going forward. So, join the club case is what I say. Copy and steal everything. Diaspora engagement by definition is a non-competitive sector. So we really should be sharing that to the maximum, auditing our programs and learning from each other. The only mistake anyone can make right now is not having a diaspora strategy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Graeme. I think that networking part and those that you can rely on, people that you can phone up. It's very easy to say, hey, how you doing? Not in a friend's Joey type way, but certainly getting deeper in that and understanding what people's needs and problems are. And it sometimes can be as brutal as what's in it for me and what's in it for you. But if you maintain that relationship and dialogue, you've got strong networks. And certainly that's what I've seen over the last 10 weeks. We've been in lockdown now for 10. This is coming into our 11th week of lockdown and home working as IFB. Ian Mitchellmore is up next. We've invited Ian along because certainly on the last couple of Aberdeen webinars and then the wider SBRC webinars, there's been a lot of questions about banking and banking behaviour. And I'm not going to say we're going to get it from the horse's mouth, but Ian, over to you.
Good morning. Let me just get my timer on. Okay, so hi everybody. I'm going to spend just 1 minute talking about what the bank actually does, because it's not massively kind of widely known what we do. We're the UK government's development bank, and our day job before COVID was to basically work with the private sector and get finance into SMEs. That's our sole purpose in life. We do that through startup lending, equity investment and debt programs. And pre-COVID, the bank had been around for about 5 years, and we had deployed around about 7 billion of capital into the UK, and around about 8% of that was into Scotland. Post-COVID, and that's in a matter of 10 weeks or so, we have deployed an additional 27 billion of capital into the UK. So it has been a transformational period for us in terms of activity and volume. During COVID, we were delighted to announce that from a Scottish perspective, we partnered with Power Equity. We're delivering a £15 million co-investment programme for their kind of angel investment. So we're really pleased about that, and hopefully there'll be more of that to come with other syndicates. So the new day job, or the current day job, is all around the kind of different programmes that have been launched by HM government over the last few weeks. These programmes normally take months, if not years, to develop, and what the government has launched in this period of time is 4 separate funding programmes in 10 weeks. So it is quite remarkable in terms of the pace that we've moved at. I think the market knows what they all are. There's bounce back loans, which is the baby of the scheme, as we like to call it. Coronavirus business interruption loans. Its big brother, the large business interruption loans, and also the recently announced future fund, which is more equity based. So just a snapshot of those different funds. So the first one was CBILS, or the Coronavirus business interruption loan. That's deployed 8 billion now since the end of March. Got off to a slow start. I think the banks were literally overwhelmed with the level of applications, so it took a while for everybody to get up and running on that. Key to our kind of activity there is to get more lenders in. So when we started this program, there was 41 accredited lenders. There's now 78. So we've been working hard at widening the choice of banks that are participating in that scheme. I think it's working quite well now. I think there's still frustrations around in terms of people accessing the loans in individual banks, but I think broadly it's settling down. It's demand driven, and we're actually seeing demand tapering off on that scheme. The focus has switched to its little brother, the bounce back loan scheme, which has now deployed 18 billion in less than a month. So that scheme is probably the simplest lending scheme you're going to see out there from a kind of commercial point of view, and the take up has been enormous. And the large one, for bigger companies turning over £45 million, that's not been anywhere near as popular from a demand point of view, and just under 1 billion has been deployed to that scheme. Our Future Fund launched last week. That's an equity-driven co-investment programme. It was oversubscribed within 2 hours of opening. So the demand for that programme is massive. The Chancellor has indicated he will look at increasing the capital availability for that. It started off as effectively a £250 million scheme from the government's point of view. That money was committed within hours. So really popular, and probably more work to do on that one. We're starting to look at what happens next post-COVID. And my dog's joining in now to help me out here. Because these schemes are by nature short term. They expire at different periods throughout 2020, between September and November, and they will be at the moment closed for applications post those periods. I don't think anybody believes for a second that it'll all be over by then. There'll still be kind of financial issues to face for SMEs out there. So we're starting to look at what happens next, not necessarily from, do we put more money into the system, but more about what do we do with what's there. People who have taken on debt now are taking it on for good reasons. They're taking it on for survival, mainly reasons. And when they come out of this, at whatever point that might be, 9, 12, 18 months from now, that debt will need to be looked at from a kind of serviceability, repayment profile, all that sort of good stuff. That's for phase 2 of this, and we are starting to look at that now. In terms of banking behaviours, I've got utmost respect for all of the partners that we have in our scheme. I think the avalanche of interest was just unprecedented. That word gets used a lot, but I think it's absolutely kind of spot on for what happened here. There have been evidence that some lenders have been very, very slow to get on up to speed. We don't criticise our partners. We try and help them and support them to kind of work through the problems that they're facing. And I'm happy that things are now settling down quite nicely. As I say, it's always been a demand-driven scheme, and on the main scheme, we're seeing that demand tapering off. On the bounce back loan scheme, that demand is still, I would call, red hot. So we're still working on getting new partners into that scheme as well. We shouldn't ignore our equity activity. It's big. We've got about £2 billion of equity deployed throughout the UK, and again, around about 8 or 9% of that is in Scotland. And we haven't shut up shop in that area. We've continued to work with our partners to support companies. So we've not pulled any term sheets that we've heard other VC investors doing. We haven't stopped considering new applications, and that work is vital. Something else we're looking at for the future is regional funds. We've got 3 in England, one small one. We're starting to look at that from a wider kind of point of view, and whether Scotland should have a regional fund as well. We'd have to be mindful of what's happening with the Scottish National Investment Bank there. But that's something again for us to put on our to-do list once we get out of this current predicament. In terms of networking, I'll just briefly say it. I'm on LinkedIn. If anybody wants to contact me, that's a good way to get me. And I'm frequently sharing all sorts of stuff on there, some of which you will find very dull, but hopefully informative. And that's me got 1 second left.
Look at that. Perfectly timed. Thanks to everybody so far, but we've still got a couple of problem characters to come for staying on time, so thank you. Some of the numbers that Ian has been running through there just give you an idea. I think sometimes the scale of the problem, the gravity of the situation we're in, sometimes goes unregistered. But if you think about some of the numbers that Ian's run through there over a very, very, very short period, we've done some phenomenal things, but there's a lot more to be done. So thank you very much, Ian. If there's any questions that anybody viewing right now would like to ask, the Q&A function is now open. So if you want to push your questions there, and we'll table them as we work through the next few speakers. And next up to talk about a local bank doing local things is Stuart Brown from Barclays. Stuart, good morning.
Morning, Graham. Thanks very much. So first of all, I think just following on from what Ian was speaking about there, it's in terms of the schemes that have been launched, as he said, there's a huge demand that came along in a very short time. I think majority, you've gone from tens of thousands of applications to hundreds of thousands of applications, much more than a bank would normally see in business as usual. Majority of those, the banks have ran very fast. Majority of those have got through smoothly, but very aware that there are many out there that are still going through that process. And sometimes it's a case of the bank just requiring some more information to then try and get through it. But lots of people have been redeployed from other areas of the bank to focus on this issue and try and get things through as quickly as possible, because it's absolutely fundamental that the businesses get support ongoing. And great to see, interesting to hear the Future Fund is oversubscribed. The government has reacted along the way of, first of all, it was Sybil's, right? That's not hitting everybody. Then it was Bibbles. Now it's, it's Future Fund. So adapting as it goes, and I'm sure that's constantly under review. The other things that banks are doing, and I'm speaking banks in general here, is overdraft extensions, capital repayment holidays, and all banks have a COVID-19 part to their website that will show not just the financial support, but lots of non-financial support, because that's absolutely key to businesses. So I'm just going to touch on a few things that Barclays have and have been doing, and literally it's changing every day. So we have our Eagle Lab network across the UK, which we've now got 26, 27, I think it is now, locations. In Aberdeen, we have the one within one code base. Obviously, that's not possible to do physical elements there at the moment, but then that's flipped into virtual help. So we've got a support hub on the Barclays Eagle Lab site that has webinars, videos, readables, Q&A sessions, delivered not just by Barclays, but by entrepreneurs and other partners. So to give lots of things that businesses need at the moment. Yesterday, we launched the Barclays Back to Business programme, which was developed out of our scale-up programme that we did with Cambridge Judge Business School. And this is an online 15-hour programme that helps businesses look at the health of their business from a financial and management perspective, looks at strategies for dealing with low income, alternative sources, so pivoting, which I'm sure we'll hear more about that later on, what and who you need help from, and scenario planning. So lots of useful aspects there. Also last week, we launched the partnership with Nextdoor. So Nextdoor is a neighbourhood app that allows, and our partnership with them allows businesses to advertise on there, show that they're open for business, and put in local offers, etc. So just bringing that to life, and it can be postcode specific. So absolutely to help that locality. And then Barclaycard solutions, very evident we've moved in COVID to a more cashless society, and we'll see how that adapts as we come out. But people looking, because of pivoting, looking to go online as quickly as possible. So Barclays have various solutions, and also a partnership with VisualSoft to get people up and running more quickly on online. From an Aberdeen perspective, we have our local business banking team, led by Hunter Inkster, and that's available for everyone, customers and non-customers. Just back to what we're speaking about, Graeme talked about that networking, joining the club. It's absolutely there to have discussions, whether we can help directly or indirectly through our network and help people along the way. Our Eagle Lab led by Leslie Taylor, I'm sure many people in Aberdeen know, and she can bring to life the support hub that I spoke about before, the female founders hub that we have across the UK, and then how we can implement that into Aberdeen and supplement everything else that's going on. Mentoring, whether that be bank employees helping mentoring businesses, whether it be some of our partners that we have arrangements with for mentoring. And then in our branch, financial well-being for individuals, employees. We all know about the challenges that are around. Yes, we all look at the mental health aspects, but also that financial people have those financial worries, and how are they managing their money, etc. And that's that can be owners of business, it can be employees of business. We are there to help it, and then digital skills as well. So there's lots of things there that it's very much about all hands to the pump. I know it's a bit cheesy, but we are all in this together, very keen on a kind of local basis to help as much as we possibly can. You've seen some areas there that are there, but it's very much about using that word, join the club. It's there to help and work with every public and private to see how we can help. Thanks,
Thank you
Graham.
very much, Stuart. I think that Barclays brand, and as a theme that we're running through this, and it's really important about that personal brand as well as the business brand. What do people want to remember you for as we come out of lockdown in a year's time? How did you behave? Was it drastically or remarkably different to how you behaved before, or are you just opportunist in a crisis? Some of those points reflect some of the biggest brands, but some of the smallest brands and individuals as we go through this. And that'll be maybe important as we move into to speak to Paul and Alistair coming up next. But right now, it's Judith Thorpe of Thorpe Malloy McCulloch in Aberdeen, and she's going to talk to us about our women's mentoring program that she's spun up, I believe, pre-COVID. Is that right, Jude? Over to you.
Yeah. So I want to start by telling you that I went to a convent school. I wonder if Jude McCorry did. I went to a convent. It was an all-girls school. And
to ask that about me, Judith.
Did you?
Yeah.
So the reason I mention it is that it was all girls, and when we were 16, I think collectively we had a really strong, empowered sense of we were going to go out there and rule the world. And I did. I'd like to think I did. But actually, when I look over, I started a business at 24, and as one of 2 female directors. But it never occurred to me that wasn't the norm, and that women wouldn't aspire and wouldn't achieve C-suite positions. So over the last 20 years in business, and particularly now where it's become, there's a lot of chat about diversity on boards and a lack of female representation in the C-suite, it just compelled me to do something about it, to change it. So we started a group coaching program. It's coaching. There is mentoring within it, but it is actually coaching in Aberdeen, because there are none. And I've been a member of quite a few female networks and different networks, but female ones, but none that really sort of responded to what I wanted to do, which was to encourage and empower women to apply for those C-suite roles. And we were thinking about what we could call it. So we came up with Ikigai. And Ikigai, contrary to one of my friends misheard me and thought it was a sleazy man that followed you around at parties. It's not that. It's a Japanese concept that combines, imagine Venn diagram, what you're passionate about, what you're good at, what you can get paid for, and what the world needs. And the sweet spot in the middle is your Ikigai, your sense of purpose or your passion. So we called it Ikigai, and we started it in February, and I've got 10 fantastic women who've been part of it from different backgrounds, 2 from the energy sector, women who've got their own business, 2 women who have got charity, who are, one's a CEO of a charity and one's heavily involved in a senior position with a startup charity in Aberdeen. So brilliantly representative of the business community. And it's been great. And I was gutted when lockdown occurred and we had to take it into a virtual world. But actually, it's worked really well, and we've had meetings every couple of weeks. And last night we had a social. And when it kicked off, the first question that the group was asked was, "What is the one thing that you don't want anyone to know about you?" Which is a pretty spicy question, and I won't tell you my answer, but it was kind of like, wow, this is where we're going. And I think throughout lockdown, and Jude and I have talked about this, I've talked about it with lots of people, just how much vulnerability has been shown, whether it's the kids in the background or the dog barking or everybody's working from their bedroom, and what this group has expressed is that sense of vulnerability and we've discussed saboteur inner voices, the crisis of confidence, and I think everybody's been knocked by COVID, and it's been a brilliant place to actually go and say, yeah, I'm having a really bad time, and be able to say that and have some shared support from that network specifically. It's easy to hide behind your ramparts and go into hiding mode and not step out of your comfort zone. So through that process, I then started to think, right, what can I do, and how can we find some positive stories throughout this? And the first person I interviewed was Jude, because she started as CEO 4 days after lockdown, and we just met a couple of weeks before lockdown started, or the week before lockdown started, and that was really, for me, it was going to be a story about a positive recruitment story, because that's my business. But throughout that, while we were discussing it, it was just a strong sense of female leadership and how inspiring that had been. And so from there, I thought, right, I'm going to go and chat to some women who have a real strong sense of purpose and passion. So I've spent the last few weeks focusing on finding women who have that strong sense of purpose and passion. And a couple of them have been social enterprises or B Corp, which I hadn't known about before, which was really interesting to find that about that. So I've spoken to Jude, I've spoken to Cressy Wesling, who's got Elvis and Cressy, which is turning old fire hose into handbags and luxury goods, which is awesome. I've spoken to Adele Harris, who again started a role as CEO just in January and has a real strong sense of purpose in terms of supporting people with a disability. I've spoken to the Natty Shed lady, Cara Mackay from Angus, and last week I spoke to a lady who's got a social enterprise from Babies with Love, who's based in just outside London. And the reason I mention that is because I think it's really important, and I'm all about #BuyLocal. And I think for Aberdeen and during the last downturn, that was the strong message that came out of it. But I think it's also about expanding your network, and it's been so easy. Nobody has said no to me. You know, if I've reached out and said to people, can I have a chat with you? Would you share your purpose and passion with me? Nobody has said no. So I think it's about Aberdeen reaching out and looking for expertise out with, and if there is, if it is somewhere else in the world, on a global basis. I know SBRC are having a webinar next week with a guy from Silicon Valley. So if we need expertise from externally, then let's reach out for that. Let's expand the networks outside of Aberdeen to do that, as well as looking after our networks within Aberdeen. So I'm looking for how we can, to wrap up, convert decommissioned oil rigs into luxury goods, handbags, furniture. I'm not sure yet, but I'm working on it.
The scary thing is, and the exciting thing is, you'll probably succeed. Judith, thanks very much for that. And I think that relying on our network, sometimes in Aberdeen, we look at our navel too much, and we don't contemplate the outside world. There is something beyond Aberdeen. And there are some companies that really do get that, and some individuals that really do get that. And I think we should be doing it more, because actually we have a powerful community here in the city that can get just about anything done. So I asked the question virtually, hands up who wants a pint? We're all missing that cold pint at the bar. Let's face it, we all are. Hands up who's missing that company in a local establishment, or food down the local takeout, a restaurant, all of us. And here's a man who knows how to deliver that and has been delivering it for a long time. Paul Clarkson from PB Defco. Morning, Paul.
Morning, Graham. Thank you very much for having me along today, and Judith for the invitation to be part of this this chat today. Yeah, I'm Paul Clarkson. My family has operated PB Development Company for 34 years here in Aberdeen. We've got a number of establishments. I'm like the third generation behind my grandfather and father. And then myself and my three brothers here are very much part of the company as a whole, and pushing it on further from what my kind of father mainly developed. Obviously, since the lockdown it's been a very, very tough time for hospitality. Everybody's obviously been very tough, but very tough for hospitality in particular. And we will see the effects of this a lot longer than most people. We were the first hospitality company to actually kind of take the plunge and close our doors. My parents are based over in Spain now, and they kind of saw firsthand what was happening over there prior to happening here in the UK. So once kind of the government started announcing things, we kind of took the big bold decision to close down our venues, and that was very tough. It was 240 odd employees, not knowing what was going on until announcements were made regarding furlough, etc. So it was very, very troubling, tough times. It's not something that we'd ever been used to. We've always been a very quite safe and secure company, like I say, having operated for 34 years. And then once that kind of passed, it was really that from then onwards, trying to figure out what can we do. We had to cancel one of our kind of biggest days of the year, which is the kind of bank holiday Monday, May Day event, which here in Aberdeen particularly has become such a staple in the calendar. It almost goes in part to being like the second busiest day of the year behind one of your busy Christmas Fridays. So when that actual date was approaching, I got an idea, like after seeing a lot of other things online about streaming music and virtual events and stuff like that, to try and put together what we ended up calling a virtual May Day. And that was very much this kind of networking, collaborating kind of idea that I formed. Usually the kind of bars and stuff like that around the city that are very popular for this May Day bank holiday event would be our direct competition. But I felt it prevalent to reach out to these people at this time and see what we could do together. What could we come together as a local city, as a local community, as local establishments within Aberdeen, just what then kind of bore from that was this amazing spirit amongst us all, between emails and a WhatsApp group, and it started growing arms and legs, and we involved a lot more local businesses. So I mean, we kind of like ticked all the elements of trying to create a virtual media between clothes stores, hair and beauty, food deliveries, drink deliveries. We were really kind of, and it was so refreshing to see this whole collaborative thing going on that, I would go so far as saying one of the kind of proudest things I've done in business, other than, obviously opening up other venues. So, it's amazing that in this tough time when we are on like a lockdown, that something like that can still bring such amazing spirit and collectiveness and bring such rewards from it. We managed to successfully raise over £5,000 for local charities, which was going directly to local charities. It was the NHS Grampian and also to Mental Health Aberdeen. I think at one point during the day we had over, I think it was about 1,400 households watching our live stream. So if you take into consideration there's maybe 2 or 3 or whatever, how many people per household, I think the numbers that we generated to watch that locally in Aberdeen were phenomenal. And there was actually people tuning in from all over the world. So, that was, the idea behind that was to try and pull everyone together. And that, I still feel at the time now that that's something that we really need to focus on going forward. Aberdeen is not a massive city. And, this togetherness, this community, this collectiveness is something that, is a great thing. Yes, we need local competition, but, certainly from the people that were involved in the event on the day and, within this WhatsApp group we've got, it was so rewarding. And, they definitely want to kind of utilize that kind of ideas going forward. And then just leading on from that, we managed to get our local cafe store So on Union Street reopened 2 weeks ago. But again, when we made the decision that we're going to be able to do takeaways and with that still being allowed, we had to think about how we were going to attract people into the store. We weren't going to be able to offer a massive exclusive menu that was going to draw the hordes in. So again, I reached out to a lot of local suppliers that I maybe use or didn't use or was aware of, knowing that they've actually still been quite busy during lockdown, but have maybe been struggling to produce as well as deliver. So I brought those kind of people into the store to make it a bit of a community store as well as a cafe that you can get a coffee or a sandwich. And I think that again, bringing that kind of local kind of collectiveness together has been fantastic, and I think it's been well received from the people that have been through the door. We've proven here that you can comfortably open a venue and social distance within it. We've put in some pretty the shop lent itself to it well, and we've done it pretty well. I'd like to think so, and certainly the feedback we get from people is that that it has been well thought out, and just it's instilling confidence in people that they can come into stores locally and still act in the new normal. As I mentioned earlier on, that people keep asking about when we're going to get back to normal. Well, I'm afraid it's going to be the new normal. That's the kind of way we need to look at things. And I believe that the new normal is a lot of this collaborative and networking things that everyone else has kind of discussed. And the next kind of thing that we're planning now is obviously this phase 2, where we'll be opening out the outdoor areas. And again, what I'll be reaching out and hoping to do on the back of the announcements about about cars being removed from Union Street and cafes and bars being allowed to use the pavement and stuff like that, I'll be reaching out to the council to get as much help as I possibly can to maximise the areas that I do have, the likes of outside the front of Seoul, which, you know, has probably got the largest beer garden on Union Street. You know, I foresee hopefully getting a really amazing looking outdoor area there to try and hopefully kickstart the economy in Aberdeen and get people back and getting into this new normal. You know, and other things that we'll be doing is, you know, we started with the Beeldside Inn out there, with it being a very local community. That's just opening up today to collection takeaways of food, because you know that's one of these areas where, you know, it's a local pub out there that's well established with a food setup, and it's probably an area that doesn't get as many deliveries as the centre of town. So that seems to be going well so far today, from what I'm hearing, as my phone's buzzing away while we're on this webinar. So, you know, we're just trying to do what best we can to keep things moving, and like I say, what I keep saying is taking baby steps back into this new normal. And you know, and I hope that, you know, that things like what we're doing, you know, if people can, you know, I know there is obviously a big thinking towards supporting local, but we really hope that this crisis can reignite people's further passions into supporting local, and you know, and maybe go in some way to local businesses coming together in other collaborative ways to support the city and drive it onto a new kind of future.
Well, amazing. I mean, a great roundup, and the enthusiasm I think that I hope everybody's got from that is Paul is one of these guys that you get a WhatsApp message from and say, hey, I think I've got a good idea, and then 2 days later it's done, you know, so there's no holding back. And since we're all working from home just now, but you're actually in work, what's today's special?
The soup today, we've got some lovely chicken broth, and we've got some fantastic in-house made sandwiches, and we're doing one of our kind of community drops of our in-house made curries later on today as well, and then I'll be stopping off the Beeldside to see how they're doing with their collection. So, you know, we have, you know, so far we haven't unfurloughed any other members of staff. It has been myself and my brothers that have operated so, and you know, it's very much that hands-on approach that I've always had that we're kick-starting our business with. Good.
The curries I can strongly recommend, because we had a family session last weekend, as well as everything else. Paul, thank you very much, and good luck with what you're doing.
Thank you.
I'd like to round off today by introducing Alistair Forbes. Now, Alistair and I have known each other for a long time. We've bumped into each other at various events and boards and seminars and whatever else. But Alistair is one of the founders and instigators behind the Scottish Tech Army. Alistair, I'd like to find out more about that. Over to you. Good morning.
Good morning, Graham. Thanks for the introduction, and thanks to yourself and Jude for the opportunity to speak today. Quite special for me, actually, because I am part of that Aberdeen diaspora that was mentioned earlier on. Haven't lived in the city for a long time, but it's great to be able to speak to everybody today. So my background has primarily been in the software industry, the digital space, and as we were getting into the period of lockdown, I and a friend were thinking about some of the challenges that everybody was facing, and you know, the tech community and how it might help to address that. And we're not always going to become doctors, nurses, restaurateurs next week, but we've got skills that can support those who are out there on the front lines dealing with the practical realities of what's been going on. Coupled with the fact that with the job retention scheme, people being furloughed and some people being made redundant because of companies cutting back, it struck us that there was this huge pool of talent out there that we could try and tap into to help solve some of these problems. So that was the concept, and from the very first phone call about it to launching it was 3 weeks, and yesterday was our 1 month anniversary. And we have been absolutely astonished by the reaction we've had from all over Scotland. One of the pleasing things, I think, has been just the range of people and the locations they've come from. So I don't live in Aberdeen these days, so I'm not as well connected in the local community there. But we've had such great uptake from people in and around Aberdeen who have leapt right in there. I mean, just give you one example. There's a young woman who is out of a job at the moment. She's at home, she's got a 1-year-old kid, but she has jumped in and she's effectively become our COO overnight. You know, so we just be able to connect with and service so many fantastic people through this. I think one thing that Grahame Paterson was saying earlier was about the speed of change, and I think for me this is a really great example of the saying that the pace of change is faster than it has ever been, but it will never be this slow again. It continues to accelerate. And one of the things that this has really driven home for us, but for many organizations, I mean, you know, Paul, you're giving some examples from your business, that when people get really focused and they've got a clear idea of what they're about, then you can accomplish amazing things in a really short space of time. So over the course of that first month, we've been able to recruit 750 people into the tech army. 550 of them have joined our Slack workspace and are actively participating and communicating. The level of responsiveness is unbelievable. We put stuff out on Slack at all times of the day or night. And within 10 minutes, there are 5 or 6 people all over it, you know, wanting to help and getting involved. In terms of some of the points that were being discussed earlier about building of networks, I think, you know, certainly from outside Aberdeen and Aberdeenshire, there's a bit of a kind of, you know, impenetrable wall is perceived, you know, because the city has had its own unique economy and has been very focused on that. So, you know, opportunities to engage in the broader networking, I think, are going to be really valuable. I think I would say, you know, based on experience in other parts of Scotland, one of the things that you have to be quite careful of is not diluting the networking activities by having too many of them. I think if you look in the Central Belt, for example, there are so many networking groups. There's now like 3 data science meetup groups. I mean, you know, surely one's enough. So I think, you know, as Aberdeen is responding to and reacting to the challenges right now, I think the power of focus and the power of concentrated effort is going to be really important. I think, you know, this is a great opportunity to build those broader networks that were being talked about earlier on, and you know, to start engaging and learning from each other. So I think that's very much a two-way street. I think finally, for me, you know, this is something which, you know, it's been said earlier on in this session. It's not suddenly going to get better. It's going to take a long time. So when we set this up, we didn't know how long we were going to have people available. So one of the lessons that we're going to have to learn is about how we as an organization can be resilient, because we don't employ anybody. They're all volunteers. You know, those who are out of work are hoping to get back into work. Those who are furloughed are hoping to go back to their jobs. So, you know, one of the things for us is, how do we create something that is self-sustaining? Because I think, you know, we're delighted about the response we've seen so far, but the challenge actually is going to be to sustain that. And I think, you know, that'll be the case with lots of things that have started in this period. So building something that is lasting and sustainable is going to be the challenge that we certainly have to address, and that I think, you know, all of us will do. So I think, you know, one of the great things for me is just how much the reaction of people to this pandemic has really started to open people's horizons. I think you said right at the start, Graham, you know, that it's stopped, I think, some of the more navel gazing, I think was the word you used, kind of activities, and got people really focused on, you know, what can we do together and how can we build these communities. So I think that there's tremendous opportunities that can come out of this. My specific ask would be that we've already had great engagement from people in the Aberdeen area. One of our first projects is for Voluntary Services Aberdeen, building a system to help them manage their PPE. That's fantastic. We'd love to hear about more projects that we can do to help organisations in the Northeast. So with all of your networks, I'm sure you must know people, so we'd really love to hear any ideas for things that we can do to help in the Northeast, as we aim to do in the rest of Scotland. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Alistair. I think if any of the viewers or any of the panelists are not aware of the Scottish Tech Army, just Google it and it will become apparent what it is, and give you more detail off the back of what Alistair's been saying there. But it really is about community. It's about the industry itself going, actually, we need to do something here. You know, private sector coming forward and actually making things happen, and individuals coming forward and making things happen. And that engaging with a willingness from the public sector is how we're going to get through this. You know, how we're going to revive and reboot and rethink everything that we need to do. You know, rethinking how many people you can get in your office or in your bar, or how we do provide public sector services is really a massive problem for all of us, and it will need intellectual and financial funding to make it happen, and also a willingness. From a panel point of view, in terms of questions, we've got one question. We may run over at 11 o'clock, so thanks for sticking with us. One question to the panel, and I'll maybe perhaps pick on somebody in a second once I've read the question. The SDA model has shown how community can be grown when it has an identified purpose. What can Aberdeen or the Shire learn from this which might enable Graeme's vision? Graeme, you touched on that previously, just maybe in a couple of sentences. What do you think the real tangibles that we can learn, but more importantly act upon? Learning's one thing, but action's another. What would you take away from, give us to take away from today?
Well, I think the first thing is to recognise the power of the tech army within a very short period of time, that the goodwill with a clear purpose and an offer has brought people together. And it's now is the key thing for Aberdeen and Aberdeenshire organisations is to respond to that, and have that two-way flow of discussion and exploration of what can they do for us, and how does that fit into what we want to try and achieve as a region, not just as an independent or individual organisation. And in terms of the diaspora, Alistair, it'd be interesting to know how many of your volunteers are actually out with the geography or the footprint of Scotland, and linked in remotely, because it's interesting that if you think about the Scottish Government's appeal for contributions to the economic recovery debate, they were very clear in the language that said, we want to hear from people in Scotland about. And I thought, why are they not asking Scots around the world how we can affect our economic recovery? And so, there's that perception as well. So hopefully that kind of gives a bit of response. We have to prioritise, we have to articulate what we're trying to achieve, and then build coalitions and skill and will to deliver that.
Thank you, Graeme. And maybe to continue that on a little bit further, Ian, if I could maybe ask you, so fine is a very well used Aberdeen word, how you doing? I'm fine, but it's the worst four-letter F word you can use in my book because it means nothing. So nothing's fine and nothing's going to be fine for quite a while yet. Ian, are you seeing any other areas that you're involved in that are picking up their skirts and running fast with these problems and solving them? Is there anything that we could be picking up as a city or shire that we should and could be doing and pinching from other folk?
Yeah, I think because we're a UK-wide organisation, we're seeing it from all different regional points of view. So I think the best example at the moment is the kind of Northern Powerhouse activities, closely followed by the Midlands Engine Fund. So they have kind of knuckled down in terms of what they normally do. They normally do kind of packages of funding, equity, debt, etc. And they really started to focus on kind of recovery funding. So what does it look like in 12 months' time? The focus at the moment is kind of really kind of white hot in terms of it's urgent, it's now, and there's not a huge amount of thinking going on about what happens next. So that I think they're starting to look at that. So if you look at the Midlands Engine Fund or Northern Powerhouse Investment Fund, their activities are starting to look forward. What I mean by that, they are starting to look at what companies may need 12 months from now, and it may not be financial support at that point. It may be more peer group support. People have been through it, they've done it, they're able to kind of share their experience. Paul's chat was really good because I think that sector has been kind of really badly hit, and people can learn from people who have actually kind of gone through the difficult phases and come back out. So those two regional funds are starting to look ahead in terms of what might happen next. And it may not be money, it's more expertise, knowledge sharing, and access to an advisory network that is able to kind of really kind of respond and be fit for purpose. That's not always the case.
Okay, thank you, Ian. And Councillor Laing, if I could maybe come to you, that you've got a business community here that is on its toes, trying to run forward, try to get things done, and you've offered that you made the comment and offered that you want to be part of that and you want us to help. What's the best routes to get to you guys, to help you out to make the best decisions for all of us, and also to help shape that next short, medium, and longer term? How do we come to you with these ideas as a business community?
Well, I think it's as we spoke there. It's about us buying into that business charter and opening up the lines of communication. I think I mentioned that we work very closely with the private sector in various ways, and another one that I didn't touch on today, but it's very pertinent around that hospitality aspect, is Aberdeen Inspired, and we share those ideas. We make sure that we're bringing the events and things to the city that can help to bring footfall to support local business. But it's a collaborative approach with business coming into us with their ideas through the various organisations, or indeed directly. But it's also playing their part in that local outcome improvement plan, because a lot of what we've got in there is around a prosperous economy, and small businesses are definitely key to that. And it's providing those opportunities to retain people in the city as well, because that benefits us as a local authority, but it benefits businesses if we can hold on to that, particularly our young people in the future. So our Invest Aberdeen organisation, collaboration with Aberdeenshire Council, is giving people the opportunity, I think, to come in with their ideas, to look for the support that we can offer. But we will be doing a lot of things in the short term, particularly around things that Paul mentioned there about that short-term piece of licensing and various other aspects that help businesses to get up and running as quickly as possible in the uncertain times that we've got currently. So both short and long term, we want to provide help and support with people in a collaborative way.
That's great to hear, because 2.1 million people employed in the SME sector in Scotland, and we're probably the most vulnerable, at-risk sector out of the whole community, and it's what we can get from a support from public sector. So accelerating decision makings, whether they're good or bad, opening up opportunities and planning and other aspects is a fantastic thing. Anything that we can see change quickly, and it might not always be right, I think is really important. Unless there's anything else from you, Jude McCorry, I'd like to say thank you to everybody for A, sticking on time, and B, for your fabulous content. I mean, the comments that were all made and the references that you brought up are really relevant to so many people just now, and it's the content that makes it. So we've had a fabulous set of speakers today. I really enjoyed meeting you all and hearing you all. We do the one thing that has come back into fashion now is waving, because of this whole environment. People don't shake hands anymore, we all wave. So there's a communal wave about that. Well, fist bump, yes, of course, but that involves touching. But you could do a virtual one, yeah, okay. Yeah, we could do all that. So Jude, have you got anything else you would add? I mean, thanks very much to the panel. Jude?
No, thank you very much for the panel, and Graeme was on form, bossing you all today, so thank you. We will be announcing early next week a fireside chat as well, focused on the Aberdeen area, that Graeme probably will be hosting with Paul Atkinson, and Alistair's going to take part in that as well, so and a few others. So watch out for the details on that on the SBRC website and Twitter and LinkedIn and stuff next week as well. So thank you.
Thank you all. Take care. Try the soul curry. Bye.
Thanks all.